Some people see a machine, a collection of steel, glass, and rubber designed to move a body from one coordinate to another. They see a tool, as cold and impersonal as a hammer or a kitchen appliance. But you see a mirror. You see a canvas. You see the only part of your world that actually listens when you speak to it. When you sit in that driver's seat late at night when the rest of the world has gone quiet, the hum of the engine isn't just mechanical noise. It is a heartbeat. It is a dialogue between who you are and who you were told you had to be. There is a specific kind of ache that exists in the heart of the car person, the one who spends their last dollar on a set of wheels, who spends their weekends under a chassis with grease under their fingernails, and who stares at their car in the parking lot for just a second too long before walking away. It isn't about the speed. It isn't even really about the aesthetic. It's about the fact that in a world that constantly tries to file down your edges and fit you into a pre-molded box, the car is the one place where you have total, absolute agency. To modify a car is to perform a quiet act of rebellion against a life that feels out of your control. Think about the first time you felt the need to change something. Maybe it was something small, a shift knob, a sticker, a different set of lights. It felt like a tiny spark of life in an otherwise sterile existence. Psychologically, we call this identity extension. For many of us, the car becomes an externalized version of the self. We live in a society that demands we be standard. We are expected to follow the standard career path, live in standard housing, and maintain a standard temperament. But the car is where we refuse to be standard. When you lower a car or tune an engine to scream just a little louder, you are essentially saying, I am here, I am different, and I refuse to go unnoticed. For some, this obsession is born from a childhood where their voice didn't carry much weight. If you grew up in an environment where you felt invisible, perhaps a household where your needs were secondary to the chaos of others, or a school system that treated you like a number, the loudness of a modified car is a psychological compensation. It is a way to take up space. It is a way to ensure that when you move through the world has no choice but to acknowledge your presence. The vibration of a heavy exhaust isn't just about sound. It's about feeling a resonance in your chest that tells you that you are real, you are vibrating, you are alive. There is a concept in psychology known as self-efficacy, the belief in one's ability to execute behaviors necessary to produce specific performance attainments. Life is messy. You can work a job for 40 hours a week and feel like you've accomplished nothing. You can pour your heart into a relationship and still watch it crumble. You can follow every rule and still feel like a failure. But when you spend 5 hours in a cold garage struggling with a rusted bolt and you finally hear that part click into place, that is a tangible victory. It is a closed loop of effort and reward that the modern world rarely offers us anymore. The car doesn't gaslight you. It doesn't tell you it's fine when something is clearly wrong. It is honest. If you put in the work, it gives you the result. For many, the car becomes a sanctuary of logic in an illogical world. It is the one thing you can fix when everything else feels broken beyond repair. We often talk about the project car as a joke, a never-ending money pit that is never truly finished. But if we look deeper, the project car is a metaphor for the human soul. We are all projects. We are all works in progress, full of dents from previous accidents, parts that are wearing out, and internal systems that need constant tuning. When we work on our cars, we are subconsciously working on ourselves. We are polishing the parts of us we want the world to see, and we are strengthening the internal mechanisms that keep us moving forward. There is a melancholic beauty in the person who spends hours detailing a car that they only drive once a week. It is an act of devotion. In a disposable culture where we throw things away the moment they lose their shine, the car enthusiast chooses to stay. They choose to repair. They choose to improve. This is a profound psychological stance, the refusal to give up on something just because it's old or imperfect. But there is a darker side to this as well, the escapism of the red line. Have you ever noticed how the weight of your depression seems to lift the moment you hit the highway? This is what psychologists might call a flow state, but with a dangerous edge. When you are pushing a machine to its limits, the default mode network of your brain, the part responsible for rumination, anxiety, and worrying about the future, shuts down. You cannot worry about your debt or your loneliness when you are perfectly rev-matching a downshift into a tight corner. The car becomes a sensory deprivation tank for your trauma, but this relief is temporary. The road eventually ends, the engine eventually cools, and as you walk back into your house, the silence feels even heavier than it did before. Many people ask, why do you spend so much money on a car that isn't worth it? They are looking at the Blue Book value. They are looking at the market. They don't understand that you aren't buying parts, you are buying moments of peace. You are buying a sense of belonging to a community that speaks your language without saying a word. When you see another modified car on the road and give a simple nod, that is a moment of social validation that bypasses all the social anxieties of regular life. It's an unspoken agreement. I see your struggle, I see your passion, and I know why you're out here. But what happens when the car becomes a wall? What happens when we use the machine not to connect with others, but to hide from them? We see this in the lone wolf archetype of the car scene, the person who would rather spend a Friday night with a torque wrench than with a human being. There is a safety in the garage. The car won't reject you, it won't leave you for someone else, it won't judge you for your flaws. In this way, the car can become a maladaptive coping mechanism, a way to avoid the terrifying vulnerability of human intimacy by replacing it with mechanical intimacy. We pour our love into the cold steel because the steel is predictable. We modify the exterior to look aggressive because we feel vulnerable on the inside. We make the car fast because we feel like we are running out of time. Think about the specific style you chose for your build. The sleeper, the car that looks stock but hides immense power, often belongs to those who feel underestimated in their daily lives. It is the ultimate "I'll show them" fantasy. The show car, perfect, pristine, and loud, often belongs to those who feel they are only valuable if they are flawless. Every bolt, every paint chip, every choice of wheel is a word in a sentence we are trying to write about ourselves. We are trying to tell the world who we are without having to say a single word, because sometimes the words are too hard to find. Sometimes the pain is too deep to speak, so we let the turbo spool, we let the paint shine, we let the tires scream. But as we peel back the layers of this mechanical obsession, we have to ask ourselves a difficult question. Are we building these cars to find ourselves, or are we building them to stay lost? If the garage is a sanctuary, then the open road at 2 a.m. is a confession booth. There is a psychological phenomenon known as displacement, where we shift our emotions from a threatening source to a safer target. When you are frustrated with a boss who demeans you or a partner who doesn't understand the depth of your silence, you don't always scream at them. Instead, you go to the driveway, you turn the key, you let the machine scream for you. The car becomes a physical manifestation of your internal boundaries. In a world where people constantly overstep, demanding your time, your energy, your emotional labor, the car is a hard shell. It is a literal suit of armor made of steel and reinforced glass. When you are inside it, you are untouchable. The tinted windows aren't just for aesthetics, they are a psychological veil. They allow you to see the world without the world seeing the cracks in your expression. It is one of the few places left in modern society where a person can truly be alone with their thoughts, shielded by 1,000 pounds of engineering. This brings us to the concept of the idealized self. In psychology, we often struggle with the gap between who we are, the actual self, and who we wish we were, the ideal self. For many enthusiasts, the car represents the ideal self. It is fast, it is polished, it is powerful, and it is dialed in. When you drive it, you project that identity onto yourself. For those few miles, you are not the person struggling with anxiety or the person feeling stuck in a dead-end cycle. You are the pilot of a precision instrument. You are the architect of your own momentum. But there is a poignant irony here. We spend thousands of dollars to make a car handle better, to make it more responsive to our touch, yet we often feel like we are skidding out of control in our own lives. We obsess over alignment, ensuring every wheel is pointed in the exact same direction to the millimeter, while our own goals and desires are pulling us in a dozen conflicting ways. The car becomes a way to practice the control we lack elsewhere. This is why project cars are so often found in the driveways of those going through major life transitions, divorces, job losses, or the grieving of a loved one. When the floor of your life falls out, you reach for a wrench. You need to feel that something in this universe still obeys the laws of physics.
You need to know that if you apply pressure here, a result happens there. It is a grounding ritual. It is tactile mindfulness. Consider the stance culture or the extreme aero builds. To the outsider, these modifications seem impractical, even ruinous to the car's function. But psychologically, these are statements of sovereignty. They are a way of saying, I don't care about utility. I don't care about resale value. I don't care what is sensible. In a life governed by shoulds, you should save for a mortgage, you should dress this way, you should act that way. The impractical car is a glorious, expensive no. It is a commitment to beauty and personal expression over the cold gray logic of survival. But we must look at the empty seat beside us. For many, the car is a lonely passion. We tell ourselves we do it for the community, but so much of the work is done in solitude. There is a specific kind of melancholy in finishing a major build.